first concept of the loudspeaker was introduced with Ernest W. Simmons in 1874. He described the dynamic or moving coil transducer with a circular coil in a wire magnetic field and supported it so it can move axially. Later, in 1898, Oliver Lodge improved the loudspeaker with non-magnetic spacers to keep the air gap between the inner and outer poles of the moving coil transducer.
In 1881, Thomas Edison evolved the loudspeaker by using compressed air as an amplifier for his early cylinder phonographs. He created a metal horn which was powered by membrane and attached to the needle. In 1925, Harold Arnold began a program at Bell Labs to improve the phonographic sound recording. The first priority was the electric amplifier, second, the microphone, and third was to improve the balance in the loudspeaker.
Bell Laboratories in 1931 developed the two-way loudspeaker, with high frequencies were replaced by a small horn with a frequency response rate of 3 kHz to 13 kHz, similar to the modern tweeter. Low frequencies were replaced by a 12-inch dynamic cone direct radiator unit, similar to the modern woofer. This would be the basic structure for the modern-day loudspeaker.
The modern-day loudspeaker has 7 main components. First, starting on the outer shell, we have the basket, we have the suspension, we have the dust cap, the diaphragm, the spider, the coil, and the magnet.
So, we have all these components, but how do we actually make the sound? Well, the driver produces sound waves by rapidly vibrating the flexible cone or diaphragm. The cone, usually made of paper, plastic, or metal, is attached to the wide end of the suspension. The suspension, or surround, is a rim of flexible material that allows the cone to move and is attached to the driver's frame, the basket. The narrow end of the cone is connected to the voice coil. The coil, attached to the basket by the spider, is a ring of flexible material that the spider holds the coil in position, but allows it to move freely back and forth, thus moving the surrounding air particles, creating sound. Loudspeaker units typically divide a wide range of frequencies amongst multiple drivers. The 3 main types of drivers are woofers, tweeters, and mid-range. Woofers are the largest and used for the lowest frequencies. Tweeters are much smaller and used for the highest frequencies. Mid-range sends frequencies in about the middle of the sound spectrum. And if you think about it, this makes perfect sense. To create higher frequency waves, the diaphragm must vibrate more quickly. This is hard to do with a larger cone, as the mass presents a problem. Conversely, it's harder for a smaller driver unit to vibrate slowly enough to create low frequencies. It's much more suited for rapid movement.
Installed right in the speaker is something called the crossover. The crossover basically splits up the sound and sends it to the right drivers. So for the high frequencies, they go to the tweeter. The mid-range frequencies go to the mid-range, and the lowest frequencies go to the subwoofer. The
first and the most common type of crossovers is passive, meaning it doesn't need an external power source because it's being activated by the audio signals passing through it.
The second type of crossover is active crossover. Active crossovers use electric devices that pick up various frequencies in an audio signal before it goes out to the amplifier.
In simple terms, the enclosure is the box that houses all the components of the loudspeaker. Enclosures are usually made out of heavy wood or another material that absorbs the driver's vibration.
The most common type of enclosure is a sealed enclosure, or also known as an acoustic suspension enclosure. These enclosures are completely sealed so that no air can escape. Therefore, this means that the forward wave travels out into the room while the backward wave moves into the box. Since there are no holes or any room for the air to escape, there's a very big pressure variation within the box. As the driver moves out, there is less pressure in the box, and as the driver moves in, pressure is increased in the box.
Another common type of enclosure is the bass reflex speaker, which produces 2 sound waves by using one driver. It compresses air forwards and decompresses air backwards at the same time, and vice versa. The second sound wave is emitted from a port at the base of the enclosure. By allowing more airflow, a greater and stronger sound is produced.